Welcome to Crypto Flywheel, a podcast where we spin up strategies to turn your digital efforts into unstoppable momentum. Now, let's get the flywheel turning. Starting today, we'll be doing an 8-part series on this ISO 222 coins. Understanding these unique protocols will give you, our audience, a better understanding on your approach to blockchain. We're going to start with XRP, the native cryptocurrency of the XRP Ledger. It was created as part of an effort to build a faster, more efficient alternative to Bitcoin's energy-intensive mining system, focusing on quick, low-cost cross-border payments. I know this is one of Professor X's favorite coins, so I'm going to let Professor X take it away.
Well, good afternoon, Digital X. How's everything going this afternoon for you?
Going well.
Like you said, I'm really interested in this 8-part series that we're going to be doing and rolling out today. And I wanted to, before I get into it, I just wanted to say that our listeners should listen to this as a informational, right? This is a lot of good nuggets that we're going to be sharing. It's not just any type of advice on investing or financial. It's more so informational about this ecosystem. So that being said, I wanted to start out with the XRP, which is my favorite asset, digital asset, right? So, and I wanted to say that most important thing about XRP is that it is an internet of value. Now, what does internet of value mean? It's the evolution of money and assets moving as easily as the information does on the internet. So that's why it's referred to as the internet of value. In the early days, data could move really freely, right? So could not move freely. So they created protocols. And that solved that problem. So similarly, in financial systems, everything is fragmented by borders, currencies, intermediaries, and operating hours. So these are fundamental areas of business that fragment the digital asset space. So the internet of value replaces that, the slow, pre-funded silo rails with interoperable and real-time settlements. So effectively, that's what internet of value means. And then I'd like to just briefly get into the founders and the people of XRP and Ripple. So the chief architect of this whole thing is David Schwartz. His title is the CTO of Ripple, right? So he engineered the ledger optimized for payments and settlements, and not just mining or generalized computations like Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin kind of morphed into, it was more speculative, but these visionaries kind of focused on the banking systems and institutional grade provisions for payment processing, cross borders as well as retail. So Jed McCaleb is the other co-founder. He also was one of the earlier architects as well, but he moved on to founding Stellar Lumens, which is the XLM token, and we'll talk about that another day. But before I finish off here, I have to mention Brad Garlinghouse, who's the Chief Executive Officer, and he's also the commercial and strategic leader. Now, what does he do? He basically translated the technology into institutional adoption. So he's the one who formalized and made internet of value popular. So, and then there's Chris Larson, who's the executive chairman of Ripple. And he's also the co-founder and a long-term strategist and strategic voice for Ripple. He anchored Ripple's mission. Excuse me, guys. So he anchored Ripple's mission around financial inclusion, compliance, and enterprise trust. So yeah, with that, I'll bring it back to you, Digital X, about the XRP intro.
Yes. As you said, one of the founders of XRP, or that was affiliated with the startup process, there was one other individual that was affiliated with the project. He played a key role with the project alongside David Schwartz, which who was the CTO of Ripple. His name is Arthur Britto. He stayed largely out of the public eye, but contributed significantly to the tech. You won't be able to find anything about Arthur Britto because he moves in shadows. So no one knows even how he looks.
Yeah. So, what else? What other important areas can we provide for our listeners regarding the XRP asset?
XRP is largely actually the XRP Ledger officially launched in June 2012 with the full 100 billion XRP tokens pre-mined at its inception. So this is different from Bitcoin, where Bitcoin mines gradually every 4 years. They change their amount that's being mined. So no additional XRPs ever can be created. So
right, there's 100 billion, right, I believe?
Yeah, 100 billion. Yeah. Shortly after that, in September 2012, the group incorporated a company initially called Newcoin, quickly renamed it to OpenCoin. Then OpenCoin changed into Ripple Labs in 2013. And now it's simply called Ripple.
Nice. That's some good historical information.
Yeah. And so the three technical founders, Jed McCaleb, David Schwartz, and Arthur Britto, often they're referred to as the XRPL founders. They gifted 80 billion XRPs to the newly formed company, which I've said previously, OpenCoin, which is transitioned into Ripple now, to fund the development, to promote adoption, build use cases, and support the ecosystem. The remaining 20 billion that was there, remember we had a total of 100 billion, 80 billion was gifted. So the remaining 20 billion XRPs was allocated to the founders themselves. So this pre-mine distribution has been a point of debate over centralization, as Ripple has controlled a large portion of it. So Ripple has used its holdings for partnerships, incentives, and operations, while the ledger itself remains open source and decentralized in operation.
Okay, so can you safely say that apart from the 20 billion XRP that the founders hold, 80 billion is effectively the total supply and circulating supply combined?
No, we can't really make that assumption because we don't know if the 20 billion has been sold or been distributed out in the market, right? So we have to take into account the 100 billion, but what we can be sure of is I believe there's about 35 to 40 billion locked in escrow, which is released. I believe like 1 billion is released every month. But then they put that back into the escrow. They put a significant amount back into the escrow. I would say probably about 75 to 80% goes back into the escrow to be locked up.
Okay. So can we talk about in this episode, how can we, the myth that this is not a decentralized ledger? The XRP ledger is not decentralized. There's a lot of people out there that say that is not decentralized. So Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah. People get the company Ripple and XRPL, which is the XRP ledger, confused, or they categorize them together. So Ripple is a private company and XRPL is a decentralized, open source, public blockchain designed primarily for fast, low cost, and energy efficient global payments and value transfer. So when we look at XRPL, which is a ledger, that's open source and decentralized. Anyone can have access to it. But Ripple company itself, I mean, we can't have access to it. It's a private company, right? So having said that, XRPL is decentralized. And XRPL runs on a consensus protocol. It's also called a federated consensus. Instead of mining or staking, XRPL relies on a network of independent validators. So these servers, these validators, are run by universities, exchanges, individuals, and more. Over 120 active And let me speak about the performance of the token itself, XRP. I mean, the coin itself. It does 1,500 transactions per second.
Okay.
Each settlement takes 3 to 5 seconds. Transaction fees typically are fractions of a cent. So when I say fractions of a cent, okay, 1 cent is 1, right? So it'll be 0.0002. That's how cheap it is for each transaction.
Wow.
Another good thing about it is there's no congestion spikes like some other networks, like we see on Solana's when we have, remember when the Trump coin took off and it was launched on Solana network? It was so much demand for that token that it clogged up that network, and you couldn't do any transactions on it, right?
Yeah. So I also wanted to add, Digital X, that XRP is widely referred to as a speculative token, but it's really not. Its application and its function is highly non-speculative. People automatically, inherently think that the XRP token is the coin is actually a digital asset for speculation. Yes, there is a speculative component to it, but that's not what the intent was when they issued or launched this project. It was meant for, what was it meant for? Like transactional, deterministic value or finality, I should say. Deterministic finality for institutions, banking systems, and payment processors to actually have confidence in and see that there is a deterministic finality to every transaction. So this is what it was intended for. So inherently, it's supposed to be a non-speculative asset because it's just moving between banks, cross-border. You know what I mean? Can you expound a little bit more on that? Yeah.
Well, XRP, all these cryptocurrencies were at one time considered speculation, right? Everything is like, it's a scam, it's fake. But XRP in itself went through a lawsuit that was filed by the SEC December 20th, 2020. And as of 2025, they have gotten the clarity from the courts on the fact that XRP is not a security, right?
It's the only one, right? It's the only one that is.
It's the only one. As of today, I wouldn't consider XRP as a speculative protocol. Only reason why is because they've been sued, they've proved their case, they won it, and all the banks are wanting it now. Right?
Well, that's true, and plus they've never started with the intent of making this a crypto asset. More so, it was more for cross-border payment. They started initially right off the bat. They went and made relationships with the central banks of the world. That in itself, and they were always focused on regulations, regulatory compliance. So that has to be something that is accounted for. Like our listeners need to understand that this asset. This is not financial advice, just disclosure. But this asset is currently severely undervalued because it hasn't been turned on. The actual utility of the coin is not, or the technology is not has not been turned on or flipped the switch, as they say, right? Once that happens and all the banks and transactions start flowing, inherently the value of the asset, the governance token or coin, is going to go up in value in order for the business utility to prevail or to function. Am I wrong when I say this, Digital X?
You're absolutely right. The one thing that's holding them back right now in the U.S. is legislation. They're waiting for the Clarity Act to get passed, which should happen within the next 1 to 3 months. That's what I'm hoping. Once that happens, it's game on for the XRPL. Ripple will do well. XRP will do well because XRP is going to be incorporated into every one of Ripple's business verticals.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying. As far as the XRP as they've been at it for quite some time. They've been in, just like Bitcoin, when it first came out in 2009, it went off of just speculation, right? It was completely a speculative. Nobody really trusted it. Nobody knew about it enough to even trust it, right? So when it first, and then all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of people starting to purchase it and secure it, and then it literally went from less than a penny all the way up to a couple of $100 in about a year or two. And that's when more people started paying attention. But again, this is all speculation. Its intent was to be a digital cash platform by Satoshi Nakamoto, right? And whatever XRP is doing right now is what Bitcoin was in its early stages, what its intent was. But after the 2017 fork, they forked the project where Bitcoin Core stayed and became the store of value or digital gold narrative, where Bitcoin Cash was the one that was moving forward as a digital cash narrative. So that, and even now, in order to even that technology is still slow and it cannot facilitate what XRP Ledger can do, right? So
no one knew about Bitcoin. Well, even if you knew about Bitcoin or you heard about Bitcoin, it was just understanding how to interact or how to even obtain the coin, right? So I think
that was a difficult question.
That was one of my biggest problems, is because I'm not too technically savvy. I'm not an IT individual or a software engineer. Just like me, there's a lot of, I would say about 99.9% of the individuals out there are in similar a situation as I was. So that's why I say, here at Crypto Flywheel, we're bringing you information where you'll have the ability to understand it, and even being able to reach out to us in order to ask questions or learn how to approach acquiring products that you are maybe interested in. Having said that, I'm not telling you to go buy or sell or anything. This is not financial advice.
We're going to talk about Jed McCaleb and Stellar Lumens, and how that also is also something similar to that of XRP. And all of this is remember, XRP is the mainstay in the ISO 20022 standardization. Now, that's not a network or a token or a coin or anything like that. It is a messaging system standardization that is absolutely necessary for banks to participate in this, and payment processors. So that being said, is there anything else that I can that you want to add?
Oh, no, go ahead and flywheel out of here, Professor.
Okay, Digital X. Again, to our listeners, this is first one. We're going to have 7 other coins and 6 other coins and one other token that we're going to talk about. So tomorrow we'll differentiate between what a coin and token is, and I keep referring to it and switching back and forth. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. But if you have any questions or comments, please engage with us and comment, and then we'll address it either at the comment section or in subsequent episodes. So with that, the Crypto Flywheel is signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.